My parents allowed my jobless brother and his family to move in, and suddenly I was expected to cook, clean, and babysit. When I refused, my mom snapped, "You're so ungrateful, you have no responsibilities." I packed my bags that night and left without a word. Weeks later, they called, begging because the grocery money had run out. I replied, "Guess it's time for your favorite to step up." I grew up in a small, peaceful neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. My parents had a modest 3-bedroom house where I lived with them until my 20s. I had a stable job as a paralegal at a law firm downtown, and I liked my routine, quiet, structured, and predictable. That changed when my brother, Kyle, and his family moved in. Kyle was a 35-year-old entrepreneur, which was just a fancy way of saying he refused to get a job. He had tried flipping cars, selling fitness supplements, and even dabbled in real estate, but none of it lasted. His wife, Stephanie, was no better. She claimed to be a stay-at-home mom, but that would imply she actually took care of her kids. They had 3 children, all under the age of 10, who were loud, destructive, and completely unmanageable. I never understood why my parents enabled Kyle's nonsense. I worked full-time, paid rent, helped with groceries, and contributed to household expenses. Kyle, on the other hand, hadn't contributed a dime to our family since he turned 18, and yet my parents treated him like he was some sort of misunderstood genius. The invasion begins. One day, I came home from work, and my mom casually announced, "Kyle and Stephanie are moving in for a bit." I stared at her, stunned. "Wait, what? When did this happen?" "Oh, just today," she replied. "They were having trouble with their landlord, so we told them they could stay until they get back on their feet." I knew what that meant. Until they get back on their feet in Kyle's case meant forever. By the time I walked into the living room, my worst fears were confirmed. Toys were scattered across the floor. My brother was already set up on the couch, watching ESPN like he owned the place. Stephanie was on her phone, scrolling mindlessly while her kids screamed and jumped on the furniture. That first week was hell. The kids destroyed my room. I came home to find my door open, my makeup shattered, and my books ripped apart. Kyle never cleaned his dirty dishes, which piled up in the sink. Stephanie didn't cook, and my mom expected me to make dinner for 7 people every night because I was so responsible. My dad acted like everything was fine when I complained. He shrugged, "It's just temporary." One evening, I got home from work exhausted. I had barely kicked my shoes off when my mom said, "Oh, good, you're home. I need you to cook dinner, the kids are starving." I looked around. Kyle was on the couch, Stephanie was playing Candy Crush on her phone, and my dad was watching TV. I snapped, "Why am I the one cooking? I just worked all day." Mom scoffed, "Oh, come on, you don't have any real responsibilities." That was it. That was the moment I was done. The escape. That night, while everyone was asleep, I packed my bags. I didn't say a word to anyone. I left a note on the kitchen table. "You're right, Mom. I don't have any responsibilities here anymore, so I'm gone." Then I drove off to my friend's apartment across town and crashed on their couch. For weeks, I ignored my parents' calls and Kyle's texts, though, to be fair, he barely noticed I was gone. But then, 3 weeks later, my phone started blowing up. "Mom, can you please call me? It's important." "Dad, we need to talk, it's urgent." I finally answered. My mom's voice was shaking. "We ran out of grocery money," she said. I smirked. "Guess it's time for your favorite to step up." The fallout begins. Silence hung on the other end of the line. I could almost hear my mother chewing on her pride. "Kyle is trying," she said finally. I laughed. "Oh yeah? Trying what? A new scam?" "Kyle is looking for work," she snapped. "It's just things are tight right now." "Tight?" "Yeah, I bet they were with me gone. There was no extra grocery money, no extra set of hands cooking and cleaning, no free babysitting. Kyle had probably blown through my parents' savings faster than they realized." I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay even. "I work full-time, I pay my own bills, I buy my own groceries. You told me I had no responsibilities. Well, guess what, Mom? That means you don't need my help anymore." She started crying. I felt nothing. I hung up, but that wasn't the end of it. The guilt campaign. My parents switched tactics. First, it was my dad calling, "It's not your mother's fault, she's stressed." Then my aunts and uncles joined in. Guilt-tripping texts poured in from every direction. "Aunt Marie, family is about helping each other, sweetheart. Don't let anger get in the way. Uncle Tony, we all have tough times, you should be there for your mother." Oh, now they had an opinion? None of them offered a place to stay, but I was supposed to come back and fix everything. I ignored them. Then my mother took it up a notch, the emergency. One night around 11 p.m., my phone rang. It was my dad. "Your mother fainted," he said, his voice low and serious. I sat up straight. "What? Is she okay?" "She's exhausted, stressed. The doctor said her blood pressure was high. We're at the ER." I felt a lump form in my throat. Was this real or just another trick? I hesitated. I shouldn't care, I really shouldn't. But despite everything, she was still my mother. I sighed. "Which hospital?" The truth comes out. I arrived at Mount Carmel East Hospital, my heart pounding. I rushed inside, scanning the waiting room, then stopped. There she was, sitting up and eating a sandwich. I stared at my dad. I thought she fainted, she felt dizzy. He said quickly, "It was just." Mom looked up, surprised. "Oh, you actually came." I clenched my fists. She wasn't sick, she wasn't dying. This was a setup. Kyle smirked from the chair next to her. "Guess she still cares." I saw red. I turned around and walked out. I was done. The collapse. Days passed, then weeks, and the real trouble started. The electricity got shut off, my dad's credit card got declined at the gas station. Kyle still hadn't found a job. Then I got a text from Stephanie, "Hey, I know things have been weird, but can you please watch the kids for a few hours?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. No, I would not. Then the final twist came. One afternoon, I got a message from an unknown number. "Your parents' house is in foreclosure." My breath caught. What did I do? You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 2.